Hello, good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar all about communicating with the business. In a moment I'll hand over to our presenter, Ollie O'Donoghue, who's our industry analyst at SDI. But first let me just remind you all to please post your questions for Ollie and we'll come to those at the end of the session. Thanks for listening. I'll pass you over to Ollie now.
Well, hello everyone and thank you for joining me for this webinar on communicating with the business. So today I'll be talking about how we can really improve how we communicate with the business to keep them up to date with what's going on and how we can more effectively communicate key information needed to create understanding and joined up working between the service desk and other parts of the business. So at times this isn't an easy task. Every business unit has its own priorities and objectives, and often it's challenging for the service desk to move away from reactive to proactive support. So effective communication can help the service desk reframe its position within the business as an enabler instead of a passive cost center. So I'm sure all of us know how important communication is, so discussing why it is important is a bit of a silly thing to do at this stage. So instead we should really talk about why it is important for the service desk to make extra effort to communicate effectively with the business. I'm going to change that straight away. So for many service desks, firefighting and reactive support leave little room to concentrate on other areas of service desk management. I see this all the time when I'm out and about auditing. For these service desks, the prospect of taking time out to form a communication plan seems ludicrous. There are often more important things that need to be done first, like driving down abandon rate, improving first contact resolution, and other important areas. But the truth is that communication, if done correctly, can massively impact all of these areas. As an example, communicating about a new knowledge article that customers can use to resolve a common issue can reduce the amount of calls going into the desk. You could also, communicating about how busy the service desk is during a certain period of the week can manage expectations to customers, so kind of that Monday morning password reset issue. If that's communicated out to the business, then customers might be more aware about it. You can also communicate about service outages and reassure customers that IT is working hard to rectify it, which will benefit both service desk resources and customer perception. In these ways and many more, effective communication can present a significant return on investment for the service desk, so it's something that needs to be considered. What I'd like to do is reframe this question. So what I'd like to do is perhaps take a look at situations when communication fails. So what happens when we get it wrong? So when we get communication wrong, there can be disproportionately significant outcomes. So an example of this is when a service desk communicates a fix that perhaps backfires and causes more problems than it solves. And I've seen that happen where customers have been told to pursue a specific course of action, and actually it's done more damage than good, and that's all because the communication plan didn't really pan out. Even relatively easy to make mistakes can have an enormous impact on the reputation of the service desk, and this is another one that I've seen, which is where the opening times of the service desk have been sent out in a welcome email, and those opening times have in fact been incorrect. And like I said, I've seen that, and it caused a tremendous amount of reputational damage to people who are just starting their relationship with the service desk and IT. So perhaps one of the biggest issues service desks face is the wide range of channels that communications come out of. And I'm not speaking about technology, I'm talking about the different teams. So let's say the service desk communicates about a server outage. The server management team might also be sending something out, and often that can have different information or conflicting information with what the service desk has sent out, and that can cause all sorts of problems. More often than not, in my experience, it drives up calls to the service desk as customers see both of these communications and want a bit of clarity, so they end up calling the service desk anyway, which is obviously what we were trying to avoid. Similarly, service desks may struggle with the amount of communications they send, getting that balance. A lot of organisations, not just service desks, struggle when trying to get the balance of information. Do we send something out every day? Do we send it out every week? Too few communications going out, people might not recognise the brand of the service desk, and we'll talk a bit about brand shortly. But too many, and they might associate it with spam, which is obviously reputationally damaging for the service desk, and it means that some of the important communications are missed. So if we're constantly communicating about what the team's been up to that week, when we communicate about a server going down, that could get missed. We've also got a problem with a range of channels, and this is where we're talking about technology. So in this day and age, we've got all sorts of social media, talking about Twitter. A lot of organisations have Twitter accounts now. We've also got the problem with email. Email seems to be a bit of a problem where a lot of places don't, a lot of people don't read their email, so you could be sending something out that's really important, it gets missed that way. So we need to think about, do we send an email out? Will that get to the people that we want? Do we commit more resources to people visiting the site and floor walking and getting our communication out that way? Do we even touch social media? A lot of organisations are frightened of social media, others are kind of more keen to get involved. Higher education in particular seems to be a bit more focused towards social media. We really need to figure out kind of what the most effective channels are for our customers. So really, I mean, the big thing is, so if none of our customers use Twitter as an example, is there any point in communicating with it? Finally, and perhaps this is one of the biggest ones in my experience, the service desk simply doesn't big itself up enough, so we don't really give ourselves enough credit for some of the amazing things that we do. The service desk helps a lot of customers get to work, and often that's a thankless task. And we need to spin around some of the perceptions that organisations have about us, so our customers have about us through active communication. So most of the time when a customer contacts the service desk, it's because something is broken. We all know that. But actually we could try and reframe that to when most people contact the service desk, they get something fixed, you know, putting a more positive spin through marketing. So I mean, we'll be talking about all of these different areas. So we know what happens when we get it wrong. There are so many examples, and I'm sure many of you have your own, through your own experience, when we've got communication wrong, when we've got it right. So we need to think about how we make communication consistent, so it's consistently valuable and consistently accurate, and how really we make the service desk take the credit for its value to the organisation. So for me, sorry about the colour there, it's quite bright. I wanted to make all of the different titles match the megaphones, which is a lot harder than I thought it would be initially. So in my experience, service desk communication can be broken down into these three different areas. The logic behind this is that some of these, for example, reporting, might be managed by a separate management information team. A lot of organisations have someone dedicated to reporting, so it might not be handled just by the service desk manager or the service desk. And it's the same with marketing and internal communications. A lot of organisations perhaps have somewhere else that controls that. So I've broken these out into three areas. So the areas that service desks have control over, they can influence, and the other areas perhaps they can get some feedback in, say, example, internal communications. They can put forward their planning communications. So if we jump to the first one, which is communication planning, this is the first one intentionally, because, and it's up in the centre because actually it impacts the other two, generally on kind of the style of communication, the frequency, the channel. So we'll start with that one first of all, and I've just done some research on communication planning. So communication planning in a service desk environment isn't an easy task. There are a variety of channels at the service desk disposal, each likely to be effective for a different audience and different situations. We also have the problem with we've got a sea of information which is often too technically worded for immediate dissemination, and often it falls on the service desk to try and communicate that out. We've got a wide range of perspectives across the IT organisation that need to be considered and addressed before communications are sent out. And finally, there's the service desk and IT organisation brand that needs to be considered alongside the business's brand. So you might be kind of hamstrung in the logos and branding that you use. It might have to be a central business branding. Despite the plethora of communication considerations and concerns, very few service desks have a communication plan that is transparent and comprehensive for all staff. I've visited countless service desks out auditing, and I think only, very few of them have a proper communication plan and are realising the benefits that communication can have. So in these cases, communications that go out to customers and the business, which often appear to represent the service desk, may in fact have minimal involvement or oversight from service desk professionals. And for many service desks, the prospect of managing all communications is daunting and fraught with potential problems. We've got important questions that need to be answered before we can make a communication plan logistically possible, such as who's in charge in the organisation or in the service desk, who's in charge of those communications, and how do we ensure the right people receive the right information. But despite this, the benefits of a service desk-owned communication plan are enormous. However, and significantly outweigh any potential risks, clear, concise communications can benefit the service desk's image and perception, but more importantly, it can have a significant impact in specific scenarios, such as the system outage examples that we were talking about earlier, and even regarding urgent and high priority incidents. These benefits can only really be achieved through the construction of a comprehensive and transparent communication plan that outlines all formal communications, and only really the most effective plans will not only represent the service desk but also leverage its customer-centric position within the IT organisation to manage the communications of the whole of IT instead of just the service desk. So I think if we look at a communication plan, and this is one that I did for a recent research report, and really communication plans vary from organisation to organisation, but what is consistent is the layout and objectives of the document, and they all tend to look fairly similar to this one here. So the characteristics of an effective communication plan are that it holds comprehensive detail of all formal communications in a clear and transparent format. All of them tend to have 5 basic pieces of information, so the owner, the audience, information, channel and frequency of current and future communications. So in the first column we've got communication manager there, which is really the owner category, and this details who the owner of the communication piece will be. And this is often most effective if it's a named individual, so there's a degree of accountability, there's someone that we know who to contact if there's an urgent communication issue with this piece. But in the example we've got there, it's just kind of a job role. Then we have the audience, and this is probably the most important aspect of a communication plan and takes the most work. So we need to know who the intended audience of that communication is. And it ensures that they're getting the relevant information they need. So the examples we've got there are service desk staff, so it's an internal communication. We've also got kind of a customer survey there, so 15 survey questions going out to all customers. So it can range from kind of all of your customers to a specific kind of granular approach, so looking at a team that's affected by a particular piece of software perhaps it's going to be upgraded. So let's say HR as an example, we can target HR specifically because the software that they use is going through an upgrade and we need to talk to them. Anyone else is probably going to find that information irrelevant, so there's no point communicating out. Next we have information. So this is about ensuring the information that we're sending out to our audience is correct and relevant. It contains details such as, like the example we've got there, survey questions, we've got a major incident update using templates, so at a glance we can see what's being sent out. But it's also information required, so it's not necessarily a retrospective look. If there is information that needs to be gathered beforehand, it needs to go into this plan so we know what work we need to do to make that communication effective. Next we've got channel, and this is tricky because we've got such an abundance of channels available to us now. We're talking about kind of live chats coming in a lot. We've got social media, emails, the classic emails. We've also got telephone messages, so we can get a message up through our telephone system. We need to decide which channel is the most effective for our audience and for disseminating that particular piece of information. So a 15 survey questions going out to all customers is probably best suited for an email, whereas if it's a specific building, we might have more success if we send people out there to physically communicate with people, so to go out there and kind of get that human element out there. And frequency, this is another one, and a lot of service desks struggle with frequency. It's changed. I mean, it's not just service desks actually. I think pretty much every organisation out there that's sending communications out will struggle with the frequency. So it's about getting it right. So a newsletter going out weekly seems fine, but if you were to send out kind of news updates on a daily basis, you might find that customers become disengaged fairly quickly with that kind of communication style, and it also damages some of the other communications that are going out. So if we're looking at service updates, it's something that's going to warn someone that a server's going down for a period of time, that might get lost in the noise of all of these different other communications coming out. So we need to carefully plan the frequency that we're going to be sending out. So to demonstrate this, I think if we go kind of for a scenario, and again this is one that I used in a recent piece of research, and I'm sure we've all been there, which is where there's say a high priority incident, a major incident. So I've said server going down quite a lot, so that seems like a reasonable one to start off with. Let's say the main server has gone down, the Exchange server, so nobody can access email. So in our communication plan, we should be able to easily answer some of the questions that I'm going to put up, but you can easily see how it descends into chaos without proper planning. So the question we need to ask is kind of what communication channels are still open to us. So it's the Exchange server, email's down, so we can't communicate over email. So we need to figure out other ways of communicating. We need to figure out what's the most effective channel for our customers who are affected by the issue. Email is quite a widespread one, so it seems reasonable that all customers need to be informed, but it might be something that's a little bit more niche for specific customers, a piece of software that only they use, and we can figure out a way of targeting them specifically. Universities have this problem quite a bit because students don't tend to access the same software and the same kind of communication channels that perhaps enterprise organisations do. So you tend to find social media is utilised more effectively because that's an effective way of communicating with that customer group. So we need to figure out, based on what the issue is, how we're going to communicate. We need to be able to answer who the target audience is. This is all going back to that communication plan. So we need to know who's affected by this major incident. Again, email, it seems like it's probably going to be everyone, so we need to be able to answer that question. We need to know what kind of technical information is going to be circulated to them. So kind of internally, so if it's a technical issue, we need to also think about how our analysts are going to be informed about how to fix this or advise people, because they're also going to be communicating to people as they take calls. We need to think about what information is available. So at the start of a major incident, it's possible that very little information is available at all. Certainly some of the ones that I've seen, it's almost kind of chaotic. We don't know an awful lot yet. We're kind of reacting to it. So in this case, advising customers that the service desk is aware of the issue and is working to resolve it should be sufficient, because we don't really know anything else. Often when service desks attempt to communicate potential causes to customers in a kind of bid to reassure them that the service desk is in control, we can get some kind of reputational damage there, because often what we think is wrong at the start isn't necessarily what's the problem. So we've kind of communicated to our customers, we think it's this issue, when at a later date we might need to go back out there and say, actually it wasn't that, it's now something else, and our customers might be a bit confused. So really we need to talk about kind of information as it becomes available going out to our customers. So only once we know a kind of a clear path for our customers to follow do we communicate that out, and this feeds into our next one, which is how frequent should communications be. So we need to figure out kind of what balance achieves the best value. So it's a difficult question to answer, as it's often tempting to communicate developments as they appear. But this in itself can be damaging, because if we keep on communicating out all of these tiny bits and pieces that we've done, and these tiny little bits that we've added to the resolution, our customers might think actually we're not making a great deal of progress because we're just doing these tiny bits. And also kind of if we put out too much information, our customers might not be able to do anything with it. It might be more confused and they'll end up calling us anyway. We need the final one, actually this is probably the most important one, is we need to know who's going to be accountable. So should the service desk manager be in charge of the communications, or is it perhaps the incident manager's role? Is it the server management team that should be in charge? We need to know kind of a definitive answer. That's for the analysts, and that's for the consistency of communications. We need to know who is going to be in charge of those communications. Given the customer-centric focus of the service desk, and this is in my experience, there are merits to ensuring that the service desk kind of has quite a key role to play in managing communications, even in a major incident where it's really the server management team's area. And that's because the service desk can liaise with the technical teams, break down the information and disseminate this to the relevant parties. So certainly in my opinion, the service desk has a massive role to play in the communication planning stage and leveraging that customer-centric approach. So we've sort of talked a lot about communication planning. So what I'd like to talk about is one of the other aspects, which is reporting back to the business. Sending out performance reports to our customers ensures we are accountable, focused on improvement, and hopefully emphasizing how valuable we are. So including stats like total telephone calls, like the amount of total telephone calls that we've had that month, will help customers understand the scale of our operation. Other metrics such as first contact resolution rate can be used to emphasize the success of the service we offer and give our customers the positive impression that we are a technically proficient team that resolve a decent percentage of calls. And often we don't do a great deal when reporting out to our customers. For effective reporting back to the business, for me, there are two key traits, which are transparency and comprehension. Our reports need to be able to clearly represent service desk kind of statistics, warts and all. So there's no embarrassment if you've missed the target. We need to be completely transparent so we can be held accountable. Executive summaries can be used to explain any performance issues that have cropped up this month, or even explain how investment in new technologies improve performance. So it's kind of a positive approach. So if we're starting to hit targets, we can use that to demonstrate how self-service, as an example, has been really effective technology. To achieve both transparency and comprehension, many service desks that are very effective at communicating out their performance results use RAG reporting. So red, amber and green, demonstrated wonderfully by our traffic light diagram there in the corner. This allows our customers to, at a glance, see what's going on, what's going well, what's not going not so well. And again, it's always good to have a brief summary and explanation behind any performance issues, so things that we've done well, perhaps things that we're not doing quite so well on, to give customers that context from the service desk. So I've got an example here. So this is just kind of a basic RAG report. Obviously, we're doing really well on everything. We're meeting our SLAs, and it's pretty basic. And more often than not, that's all our customers want. So deciding how to communicate these statistics out can be the challenging part. So getting all of those stats up can be quite easy, and using that red, amber, green approach can make it quite comprehensive and transparent. But deciding how those go out to the business is one of the biggest challenges. Some organisations have a very strong business relationship manager function, so it's often appropriate for them to disseminate performance results through this. And actually, service desks that do have a strong service delivery manager or business relationship function, they tend to lead the way with some of the way these reports are sent out. So if you've got that in your service desk, use it to your advantage to get these reports out. Conversely, some service desks upload monthly reports to their self-service system, so it's transparent for anyone who needs it. So they don't directly go out and communicate these to people. They just make it available, so anyone can kind of log into the self-service system and access those statistics. But it really needs to fit with your organisation's culture and suit how your customers access the information. So to that end, we need to engage with our customers to find out what performance reports they want to see. They may not be too worried about, say, for example, speed of answer, but perhaps they want to know all about first-time fix because that's something that's relevant to them. So keeping it relevant for different customer groups is pretty important. So you might find some of the senior executives want a complete kind of rundown of all of the performance metrics for your service desk, whereas other people may only be interested in the areas that affect them. So they might want to know kind of what the average speed of answer is, how often how quick their issue can be fixed, whether or not it's going to be fixed first time. So we need to be able to engage with our customers to figure out what they're gonna find valuable when we're sending that out. This can pose a bit of a problem. So a lot of service management tools now you can actually quite easily get this information, but that's not the case for everyone. So it can be quite resource intensive to get all of this data out to our customers. So we need to find a good balance. So through engagement with our customers, find out the bits and pieces they need and get that sent out. So I've mentioned transparency and accountability a few times in the last 5 minutes. So what I'd like to do is tell you a quick story about how it works. So actually, transparency and accountability sounds quite frightening for the service desk, especially if you're not able to meet all of your targets. So I was out auditing an organisation recently. I won't say their name, but I was out auditing with the service desk certification program, and they had a fantastic mechanism for sending these kind of statistics out to their customers. But at a glance, it was obvious that they were struggling to achieve kind of everything that they were supposed to achieve. So there was quite a bit of red and yellow on their RAG reporting. They use this, however, so they kind of span it back around and use this to kind of engage with the business directly about statistics. They went to their customers and said, as you can see, we clearly don't have the resources to meet the commitments we have for average call handling time and first contact resolution time, which are the two areas their customers are interested in. So you have a choice. They basically gave them a choice and said, we can either deal with your call really quickly, However, the incident is likely to be logged to another team, so we can get back on the phone for another call, another one of your colleagues reporting an issue. Or we can keep our high first-time fix rate, but you might need to wait in queue for a bit because we're going to be on the phone, we're going to be fixing things, it's going to take a little bit longer. And their customers responded to this, so they responded really well. And there was a unanimous kind of push to say that they wouldn't mind waiting as long as it took really for their issue to be fixed. So actually they didn't care so much about the speed of answer. They just wanted that first-time fix rate to be really high. And what was really cool about this was by the time we went there to audit, their customer satisfaction was really high. They put in this change. Their customers said, actually, this is what's important to us. The service desk stopped that dangerous juggling act it was doing to try and balance first-time fix and answer rate. And as a result, the customer satisfaction went through the roof. So that's the way that reporting can work. So in that sense, kind of transparency and accountability isn't as scary as it sounds because it can be used to engage with your customers and kind of demonstrate what the service desk can do. Hopefully with this they'll know that you can't kind of get 100% of everything, so they may need to pick. So next, I'm just going to move on quickly to marketing your service desk. There's a lot. I'm kind of talking a lot here of communication, planning, reporting. Marketing your service desk is just as important. And to be honest, I'm sure if everyone here was honest with themselves, this isn't something we do very well as service desk. We're very rarely do we kind of toot our own horn and talk about how well we're doing it within our business compared to other units, kind of the type of thing that the service desks do really well in terms of getting kind of bits and pieces fixed. And we very rarely talk about how good we are, but we really need to perhaps break down some of the perceptions our customers have about us. For example, they may not know that we fix, say, 99% of incidents in 2 minutes flat. We've done that for an entire month. But I'm sure they'd be pretty impressed if we did, because they only kind of communicate to us on a one-to-one basis when they've got an issue. They're often unable to kind of see the bigger picture. So when we present that bigger picture to them, it'll change their perception. When we say, actually we're taking 1,000 calls a week and we're fixing 999 of them, it kind of markets the value our service desk provides both to them as customers and to the business. We need to pick things that make the service desk stand out as an organisation that performs exceptionally. So we need to pick out those things that are really good for our organisation. It'll be different for all of you. A great way I've seen service desks kind of publicise how effective they are and market their services is to get some qualitative examples of happy customers, so customers that have written and say, how amazing their experience with the service desk was. And they stick that on their web page, they stick that on self-service, they even email it out, and it kind of changes that perception. So people go, well, actually, Barbara was really happy, as we can see in that email, so maybe I will talk to the service desk about that issue I've been having. It's also good to publicise kind of the end results of, say, customer surveys. So throw out there the fact that 99% of your customers think you're amazing, and that changes again because people. It kind of brings in the whole picture of the service desk instead of just that one interaction that the customer has had. Marketing the value of the service desk is really about kind of building the reputation the service desk has within the business, and it can turn customers into advocates. So that's a really important part for us is customer advocacy, getting people out within the business who do think we're wonderful, know we're wonderful, who can tell their colleagues how wonderful we are. That's important in the same way that brings kind of massive benefits because those advocates will support us when we try and do something that is a little bit out there. So if we try and introduce new technology that we think will really help, our customer advocates will jump in and say, well, do you know what, 99% of the time they smash it, so we should support them. We should back them up on this one. What we can market, well, what can we market? So marketing a service desk is a little bit different from reporting, in that in many cases you can be a little bit more selective about what you publicise. So reporting, we send everything up kind of in that warts and all fashion. We show them it's completely transparent. But when we market, we can be a little bit more selective, and we can pick the bits and pieces that we think make us stand out really well. So you can focus on, as an example, so like a business priority for your service desk. So it may be that you want to drive people towards self-service, and this is something that I've seen again when I've been out and about auditing. So a service desk I visited, it was actually when I first started with SDI, had an extensive marketing campaign behind this self-service tool. They had a tagline as well, which is pretty good. So it was "Don't wait in line, get online." The service desk manager actually does quite a lot of speaking at our events about this. It's a really interesting story he's got to tell. And that kind of marketing program drove a lot of focus, a lot of kind of customer utilization towards the self-service portal, so it was very effective for them. It may be that you simply want to market service desk success through reporting functions, using those reporting metrics, if they're all green, to market how often you meet your SLA, how many calls you fix first time, so we can use reporting to help us market the service desk success. But it's important to remember that you and your team have a variety of special skills that make you crucial to the success of your business. This is something that should also be marketed to your customers. So let them know that should they have a problem with a certain piece of technology, perhaps, your team is there to help. Don't be afraid to sell the skills and talent that your service desk has. And it's also worth kind of perhaps even getting pictures of some of the analysts that your customers will be talking to help them put that kind of face to a name, and they can really easily kind of, I guess, see the human element of the service desk. So it's no longer just calling the service desk. They might be able to call, Barry or something. There's a picture of Barry up on the website with a particularly interesting piece of customer feedback he received. One of the most important things a service desk can do when it comes to marketing is to have a clear brand. And again, this isn't something we do particularly well here as service desks. We don't often kind of brand ourselves very clearly. So get your team involved and get your vision and mission and branding out there, and this will help customers identify your communications and better represent and market the services you offer. Promotional materials can also help here, although admittedly it's a bit of an acquired taste and a lot of organisations distance themselves from this, but it can be really effective. One of the most effective kind of promotional materials I saw was a service desk mouse map, which had the service desk contact details on it. It just made sense to have that promotional material on something that's kind of linked to technology that customers would be using. Finally, we need to talk about kind of who should be involved in that marketing aspect, and this is perhaps an area where service desks have less control. So in big organisations there tends to be a team dedicated to internal communication and marketing. In smaller organisations they might have a little bit more control. So we need to kind of recognise that at times that we've got skills internally and externally. So if you can leverage the support and skills of a marketing team, then it's well worth doing. Instead, you might have kind of someone who works internal to ICT that's a marketing wizard. They may have done a marketing degree and moved over to IT, and they're well worth approaching, see if they can help. In my experience, it's often a challenge in itself to make the service desk appealing to marketing people. Sometimes it's all about, picking out the phone. It's very stats driven, and marketing-wise, that can sometimes be a little bit unappealing. What we have to our advantage is that pretty much all of the people that work on a service desk are natural communicators, and will probably jump at the chance to kind of do a bit of perhaps appear in a video or write a short blog about their experiences on the service desk to help market it. So it's well worth leveraging that kind of internal ability to communicate and empathise with people. The upshot is try and get as many people involved as possible, especially in IT, because you might be able to turn a service desk marketing program into an all IT marketing program. Brand the whole of IT as one kind of unit, and that can be really effective. Some organisations find that really effective. Other organisations will stick just to the service desk because the service desk is the window to IT, so it works more with their business culture. Ultimately, it needs to be right for your organisation, your business, and your customers. So finally, with this guy, and I'm going to apologise for that because it's a bit ludicrous, really, isn't it? He's got the option to pick success or failure, so presumably no one would willingly pick failure. But it's just a good one to conclude on. So, kind of, we've got so many communication methods open to us. So we've got the consistency driven by the communication plan to go to. We've got transparency and accountability supported from reporting back to the business. And we've got the reputational boost that can be granted by an effective marketing program, and all three of these put together can really put the service desk on the map organisationally. So it's worth considering kind of how the communication plan is going to feed into both reporting and marketing and bring it all together, like I mentioned at the start. So I think we've had some questions coming in. So I think I'll answer a few of those now. It seems like a good place to stop. So I've got one here from Barbara, which is there a go-to list of performance reports that we should use? Which it's a bit of a difficult one, because we do have here at the Service Desk Institute, we do have service desk metrics that we recommend. However, in the confines of communicating, kind of marketing the service desk and reporting back to the business, you need to engage with your customers and kind of ask them what they want to see, what's important to them. If you send them kind of all 28 of the performance metrics that we recommend, they'll probably get about 3 or 4 down before they become disengaged. So we need to find out what it is that they're after, what it is they want to see, and engage with them that way. So there isn't really a go-to list. It depends on the organisation and who you're communicating to. So we've got another one here from Rob, which is, we're new to this communication business, where should we start first? And again, that's an interesting question. So a lot of service desks don't often do communication at all. It can be a bit of a challenging area to get into. I think the first thing to do is start with the communication plan. So figure out what communications currently go out from the service desk and how we can amalgamate all of those into one plan for consistency. I think a lot of places would be surprised in the amount of communications that come out of the service desk from the different channels. If we can get all of those perhaps under the service desk, or under a kind of a cross-functional team that deals with the communication, brand them effectively so our customers know where we stand, that's a really good place to start. I think engaging with other people in IT and engaging with your customers to find out what it is that they'd find helpful, through which channels they use the most. We need to find, I mean, that's a really big one, is finding which channels our customers use. Some organisations have massive problems when they email things out that nobody reads them. So they have to go to kind of more extreme measures. But yeah, a good place to start is with that communication plan and engaging with people. So we've got another question here from Brian, which is, can a service desk tool help with getting hold of or sorting through the right info to communicate? I mean, in theory, yeah, it depends on your tool. Is really, so some of the service management tools are coming on in leaps and bounds, and actually we can find it. So if we are able to put job roles in, perhaps into our service management system, job roles departments, then we can target specific people through the service management tool. We can also use, the configuration management database will also tell us who uses what software, so we should be able to use that to kind of decide who's going to be affected by an issue. It's worth bearing in mind that there still needs to be an element of kind of active customer engagement, because often these resources aren't always up to date. So what we don't want to do is kind of rely exclusively on our service management tool or our configuration management database to target a group and find out actually we've missed 50% of them because they haven't told us that they use that system, or they're going to be affected by it. They don't directly use it, but they're going to be affected by it because some of their support teams do use that tool. So that's that can be kind of a difficult one to bridge. We've got another question here from Dale, which is, how often should major incident communications occur? Do we set milestones or status changes? So this, again, I feel like I'm saying engage with customers a bit too much. It's a bit of a cop-out, really. But again, that's really about engaging with customers. So we need to find out, if we send out a major incident communication every hour, say, with an update, are our customers going to become disengaged from that? Some won't. Some might be tracking it. If it's something that's really crucial to them, they're probably going to be sitting waiting for communications to come out before they can start working. So in that respect, it depends on the major incident we're looking at. The question about status changes is interesting. So if we go from the assumption that the service desk is managing this communication process, it's leveraging that customer-centric focus that the service desk has, then if we can get our service management tool to trigger kind of an alert when the technical teams, the resolver teams have kind of moved it along or have fixed a certain aspect or have got a workaround in place, then that seems like a perfect chance to start sending communications out. In my experience, I think it's all about balance. So if it's a major incident, people are going to want to know information as it becomes available. If it's something that's affecting their ability to work, they want to know as much information as possible, as quickly as possible. But they also just want to get back to work. So we've got to consider the reputational damage that might happen if we spend all of our time communicating. They might think, well, A, are they doing anything? You know, they're spending all their time emailing us, why aren't they fixing it? And B, they don't seem to be making a whole lot of progress because we've got an email an hour ago telling us they're working on it. Well, you know, we've got another one this time around saying we're working on it. So I don't think there is a right or wrong answer there. I think it's about your business culture, how communication works with your customers. If your customers want something every hour, then provide it every hour. There just needs to be that balance to mitigate reputational damage if we communicate something out and end up retracting it, or there's just no real development. So we've got another question here, which is, are there recommended tools of best practice to handle emails for service desks? That's a difficult one. So in essence, email is a communication channel, and often we'd like to see that kind of integrated perhaps with the service desk tool, so all of the information is captured. With regards to communicating out from the service desk via email, strictly speaking, there isn't any best practice. So again, it's all about kind of what's relevant for your customers, what's relevant for your business. You might find that some of your customers want really detailed emails and are willing to sit there and read through them. Other customers might only read the subject. So some service desks I've been to will send an email out where all of the key information, so server down, no email perhaps, or Exchange server down, no access to email currently with the date, is all in the subject line, and there's just a brief summary in the body of the email. Other organisations will send comprehensive kind of records of activity that's being carried out, and their customers have asked for that. So strictly speaking, there isn't a best practice. That it needs to be based on kind of what's relevant for your customers, how they'll, you know, what sort of information they're going to find useful in that email, and it needs to be defined in that communication planning stage. So we need to look at all of the aspects. So what information is needed needs to be outlined there through engagement with customers and IT teams, and also the frequency. So we need to be able to establish in the frequency, by engaging with customers, using our business relationship management function, talking to the technical teams about how often they can get updates down to us, putting that all in that communication planning area in information and frequency, so we can get kind of the right balance. And I think this is probably the last question we've got, which is from Victoria. So it started in this organisation 3 weeks ago, going live with a new tool on the 3rd of November. It's quite scary, good luck. Still getting to know the culture of the organisation, so should I over-communicate or risk under-communicating? Which is the biggest risk? They are both risky. It's difficult. So for me, I would look at that. So presumably you're not the first person in your role, unless it is a brand new service desk and a brand new organisation, which is tricky because you haven't really set up a culture. There's no really evidence to go on. So I would look at what has previously been accepted, to look at some of the legacy communications that have gone out, use those as a template to begin with, but it's never too early to start that customer engagement process. So start talking to, if you've got business relationship managers who go out and regularly meet with their customers, speak to them, find out what their customers want, even get a focus group. Some of the most effective communication plans I've seen have had almost like a focus group where they collect a random group of people in to talk about what it is that they need to see, whether they read their emails as an example, whether they turn to Twitter as a source of communication. So I think both over-communicating and under-communicating are risky. I think it's never too early to start that engagement process. So start speaking to the guys that have been there the longest. Your service desk analysts, they're the guys that speak to people on a daily basis, so actually they're not a bad first port of call. If you said to them, I'm going to send an email out kind of every day talking about this service, they'll probably know whether or not your customers think that's a good way to go. Okay, so I think that's about all we've got time for in terms of questions. So it's been great speaking to you all, and thank you very much. So thanks, Zoe.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for listening. Just one final point that I'd quite like to make. Ollie, you mentioned a couple of times the research that you've just been doing recently about communication, and I think that's a member report, isn't it, for SDI members?
It is, yes. So it's an exclusive. I always like the sound of exclusive. So it's an exclusive member report. So any of our members can access that. I will be kind of writing a short blog on it as well, I think, shortly.
Okay, fantastic. So just for anyone who's listening who isn't currently a member with the Service Desk Institute, if you'd like to find out more about the research reports and also some of the other benefits that you can have as a member, just drop us an email. There is an email address on the confirmation email that you got for this webinar. So email me there, or alternatively give us a call, or just go to servicedeskinstitute.com and navigate to the membership pages, and you'll find some more info on there. All right, so thanks everyone for listening, and thanks Ollie for that today.
No problem.
See you soon. Bye.